All right, so I am also recording so that I can grab this later on. So
Yeah.
let's get into it. So I know for me anyway, when I was in high school, I was being told, at least for this type of business, that I would have to like leave to like an actual studio to get things up and running. But with the internet and YouTube and things like that, I can just kind of stream or do this type of stuff really at home if I wanted to. But having having access to certain things, I would have to like maybe save up for or even look for different options. But to kind of jump into it, what exactly do you feel about that little statement? Do you feel like around here, people you talk to, that they say that if a business was here or no business really should, that anybody who's talented should just get out of here as fast as they can and not like kind of build a foundation here? Do you get that often? That's kind of
Um, well, I'll say first off, one of the things that is amazing to me is the talent that is in the community a lot of times. Like incredibly talented. And like if you just go through the list, like let's just look at the first two people you put on the show. I mean, they're here and they're either entrepreneurs or whatever, social activists, whatever you are. It's pretty impressive if you kind of like made a list. And it's funny. I've often thought about the friends that I have that aren't here, and then friends that are here, which both are have their own strong suits, but um, you do have to wonder whether they needed to go away to actually reach their potential, and I can't answer that question.
yeah, that's
I
a
went
good.
away for. I mean, I can't. I mean, for each individual, I went away for um, the college, and then I came back for a little while, and then I left again, and then I came back again. And there's more than just cultivating your profession. It's also like expanding your social circles and things like that. And I think you mentioned before the interview started, like the internet has changed a lot of things. Your ability to interact with other things was through books or through maybe traditional like linear media.
Yeah,
That's how you learned and interacted, and you might be able to do some things, but um, it opens up. I hope it opens up people in ways where they can stay where they are maybe and be just as exposed. Personally, I went away and came back, and I wanted to make a difference, and Cambridge has been an amazing place, but it's also like just a place that you can kind of do and be things that you might not be otherwise. Like for me, I wanted to be an architect actually,
no,
and I thought, well,
architect.
yeah, a
That's
landscape
something.
architect. I've always had an environmental bent. Like I've always, I was planting. I was doing shoreline restoration as a kid. Like just that's what I would do after school. I would
Oh,
go down and I'm like, wow, this has grasses protecting the shoreline. This little area doesn't. And I would like with my dog, I would take little plugs and put them along the shoreline um, and see and build little like breakwaters and stuff and sort of a it wasn't quite engineering, but it was sort of like trying to just work with the land and nature and stuff. And it
yeah,
was just me as a kid, and my impression was at the time that I needed to go somewhere else to do that. There's no job you could get out of that was my thought.
yeah,
But little did I know. I mean, it's like there's people that are making their living, like whether you're a land surveyor or a member of some of the nonprofits or whatever. Like there's a huge business in that. They told me that if you wanted to be a landscape architect, you'd end up designing parking lots, which
mm,
is antithetical to like what I am at my core. I'm like, what? Paving over stuff? Like what? So anyway,
yeah,
my point in bringing that up is I went away. I was at the National Arboretum. The advice that I got was when I was externing with different architects, that what, you'd make more money selling shoes, and money isn't the end
yeah,
game ever, but
yeah,
it's puts food on the table. I mean,
yeah.
somebody's got to
That's
pay you something.
yeah, that's
Unfortunately,
family home.
we can barter,
Yeah,
but um, the one thing led to another, and um, you know, who knows if I hadn't left, which is interesting. Would I have ended up in that field as opposed to where I ended up, which is in building fiber optic networks. I mean, they don't seem completely related, but it's still sort of like solving a problem with it's kind of architecture.
Yeah,
You know, it's sort of like the end game is improvement,
yeah.
I guess, of over conditions. And little did I know the internet. I mean, I'm old enough that the internet was when it started when I was in college, and I remember writing my first paper, like doing some searches, and you know, I don't know if my parents had internet at the time. I had it in college, but you know, you can be exposed to things maybe a little earlier if you go to a more urban area.
Yeah.
So,
Which is actually kind of got me thinking a little bit, because I was like, yeah, you didn't really have the internet when you were young, and then when I
Right.
think back to the kids of today, I'm gonna say it right here, right now. Most of them probably knew more than the average kid way back when.
yeah,
As soon as they go into kindergarten, because
Yeah.
that iPad, I know for me, I have a baby sister. She's on Roblox a lot, and Roblox, it is something else. Some of the games you find her on,
roadblocks or roll?
Roblox.
Row.
Roblox.
Like as in
Yeah,
row.
Roblox.
Okay, Roblox.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a game where it's a community game where
Uh-huh.
they kind of just, because I don't know exactly, because I know you have kids and I don't know if you let them.
I have
on the
a
internet.
8-month-old, so
Oh.
he grabs the phone,
Yeah,
and he knows
exactly.
actually I think how to work it a little
Yeah,
bit already,
exactly.
but no, he's not really.
Oh yeah, because
But it's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, so because when I thought about that, because I'm like, she got like when she would play like video games early and all this kind of stuff too. So basically, like that motor skill, like the things that certain kids,
Mm-hmm.
way back in a certain time, it wasn't too much, I guess, developed. I guess. Well, I know sure crawling and certain other things, but with Roblox, she has to not only use her fingers and thumbs to like navigate, but she also has to comprehend what's happening on the screen, which is kind of crazy when you think about it sometimes. So going back to the theme of having to maybe leave or something, I don't really think that's too much needing to happen really anymore, because you
Yeah.
can kind of do one Google search
Yeah.
and you look at what a city has, and really you can just bring it to Cambridge. If I'm being honest, like you could literally say, well, I wish that this store was here, and you can either make your own, start it online, get some friends or something.
So I think what I'm hearing from you though is you have to have an inherent curiosity and be receptive. So like you often, I think you could build that, here locally, like with your their experiences maybe, but at the same time, going somewhere else and actually interacting. Like I'm an introvert by nature. I just people. I need people, but I like them on my own terms.
Yeah.
I don't get energized by people. Like they drain me, and I have to go recharge, and then I'm ready to go back into people again.
Yeah.
People that are extroverts just need people.
Yeah.
But physically going somewhere else. There's a Zac Efron show on Netflix where he's with this guy that they go to different places throughout the world, and the one guy he's with is sort of this. His whole thing is like when he first gets to the new place, like, and it was cold, one of the places they went to, and he takes his shoes off and stands in the grass, and Zac Efron's like, oh God, what are you doing? I mean, we're standing on the side of a highway. He's like, it's very important to get grounded in where you are, and it's there's things we don't understand about this, and the energy and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not gonna say the guy's wrong in that, but there's probably some truth to it, and it just goes beyond that. It's like sitting at a cafe on a very old city somewhere, or I was fortunate to go on safari twice to South Africa, and like actually is it where Victoria Falls is, Zambia, just north of there and stuff. And it's just like go before you go, you do all the research, you see all the pictures and stuff, but there's really now Meta, Facebook, at some point it's conceivable that you could be virtually in that experience and feel the same thing. But at this
Yeah.
point, I know there's things we don't even understand. It's just not about
Yeah.
what you see and what you read. It's actually just there's all these other elements in place when you are physically in a place. And so I don't know if you're talking about just like if you could have the life you want by just
Oh
staying
yeah.
here completely,
Not
or
like that.
you mean
Yeah.
like you're saying it's all right to travel, it's all
Yeah.
right to experience things. It's just
Yeah.
you don't need to like plant yourself
Yes. Yeah.
somewhere else
'Cause,
to be successful.
yeah, 'cause
Okay.
I know that sounded. I know
Yeah.
that probably sounded a little weird,
Yeah.
but yeah, 'cause I was gonna say.
Well, we should
I even
clarify
go
that,
mad-
yeah.
'cause I could go mad too if I was like in the house all day, and that's why I bring on the guests, 'cause
Yeah.
they help out, make sure that what I'm saying makes sense, 'cause
Yeah.
me also I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
I'm slowly trying to get myself out of it, but
Right.
it's I guess going back. Let's see, I gotta go back again. This is the one thing that I do is make sure that I'm talking coherently. So yeah, going back to that VR thing, because we actually experienced VR, and we've been to a few VR rides, and I will say one that it is extremely extreme. It is nothing. It is like a whole different experience, because it's weird, because I guess like traveling, like if you were to travel, like when we went to Florida, like the whole experience to get to Florida and the whole experience getting back, like going on the plane, having the ears pop, being miserable because I don't like flying.
Yeah.
Just being scared that the plane might fall.
Yeah.
Going to Florida, going to the resort, and then being, happy that I'm on the ground, seeing new people, seeing different animals, and then either repeating it to get back home, and
Yeah.
such as versus in virtual reality where you put on a headset and you're just kind of there. It's weird because I don't know how many VR experiences you've been in, but I've been in a few. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
have
'cause I was
not.
gonna
And I'm
say-
worried about motion sickness.
Oh well,
Like
that is one thing.
Yeah.
But, I went in a few VR experiences. One was a roller coaster, and good lord, I'm not gonna lie. Some of those experiences make you feel like you're gonna pass out because I guess it's a 4D VR type deal. So it's like if there's wind in VR, they blow the wind in your face.
Yeah.
Or they
Yeah.
do all that vice versa, and you're like, oh lord, you feel like you're there, and then you get out, and it's kind of a weird, surreal experience. It kind of makes you feel like, is this the real world, or if that's
Yeah.
the real world type
Yeah.
deal. But okay, jumping back on track. But
Yeah.
VR, it is in my opinion a little bit of a. It does help in a sense to be there. Maybe not to experience it, I guess, but it helps you to be there because this is a funny little story I can tell. My sister, she has VR, and we went to like this little amusement park, a custom amusement park map. Me and my cousin, we also were in there too, but she was in the VR headset. We were just on our computers to kind of just direct her and see like what exactly it felt like. And sometimes we'd go in and we did this roller coaster or this weird flippy thing, and it was funny.
Yeah.
She passed out twice. Because it felt that intense to her. Because when you're in the experience, it's kind of weird because your brain is like trying to expect things to happen, but it doesn't happen. And then
Yeah. Your brain's
funny.
like something's terribly wrong. Time to shut down.
So it was kind of funny when we would notice. We'd be like, oh, her character model. Cause,
And how old is she?
She is 18.
Okay,
now.
18.
Yeah,
right.
she was above the age, but it was funny because she was just sitting because we were just like watching. We were watching her little avatar because it tracks the top part, and we just like see on the side like she's clipping through the chair, and she's like on the ground. We're like, oh, is she like asleep? And our sister, who's in the other room, was like, hey, yo, say that. She was like, I passed out because I was like, dang, that thing was intense, wasn't it? She said, yeah, I ain't going back on that one again.
That's crazy to think she passed out.
Yeah, it's kind of I know that might. I
Well,
know
I
sounds scary, but
I read once about how difficult like it is to even design like roller coasters so that everybody's not throwing up. Like it's like you're particularly the things like the movements, like they have to be timed and everything's such because if your eyes, your ears, and your other senses need to line up.
Yeah.
And the first response is just sick. You know, your stomach and your eyes, everything, you're dizzy, because nothing matches up. But it's incredibly difficult. Like people take for granted how hard even a simple roller coaster or amusement ride like that is to design.
It was.
You like split seconds are critical in terms of everyone not, great. You've spent $1 million on the ride, but everyone's throwing up. Not good or passing out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was. She missed a little bit of it, but when we went on, we felt that same kind of weird adjust because you also because you also have to control your character with the thumbstick versus your legs. So it was funny because all of us, well, when I first went in, I was just swaying all over the place because like it was like the character. So imagine you're in a car and the G forces of a car. It was kind of like my body
Yeah.
was trying to do that. I
Yeah.
was like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
And that was a funny experience. That did make me laugh. I was like, good lord, because everyone around me was like trying to catch me because I was like, I'm falling off too far one way, too far the other way, falling back. And
Yeah.
then don't get me started about when your character starts to fall through a space like
Oh wow. Like
that
dreaming. Like
yeah,
you're
that would be
ooh, yeah.
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 No, it makes you sick for sure because it's weird because then your brain kind of like
Yeah.
makes you feel it and you're like,
Yeah.
what the heck is going on? I don't want to feel nothing. So yeah, that was a whole
Right.
ordeal. That does make me laugh. That did make me laugh. But yeah, I guess going back because I know that was a nice little fun little tangent. As I like to think, so now I got to go back a little bit.
Well,
on
so I did
track,
want to
but-
comment, like,
oh,
one of the most useful things about VR is the ability to, for training and actually for, say, like,
Yeah.
support. Like, suppose someone, is training to be a plumber, for example. It's conceivable that, they can actually be put into a scenario where they can actually, either maybe that someone is directing them, okay, so see, turn the left screw, and like they're, you're okay, and they see what you're seeing, and vice versa. You can actually be put in scenarios that, electrician, for example, where you're not actually having to deal with live electricity to learn to be an electrician, or you can bolt on other skill set, other people that there's only one of them and they can actually be helping more maybe people on the job. It's just, there's some real cool like applications like that um, go back to architecture, conceptualizing what a space is going to look like before you build it. Because the worst thing you could possibly do, let's say you're architects trying to commission this space, they build it and the people are like, we hate it. It's not what we thought it was going to be. I mean, things like that would be really cool and practical, outside of just the pure amusement of VR.
Well, I will say because there are a lot of VR arcades, but I'm pretty sure they are kind of expensive. But I do know because I guess speaking on to the one fact, I know we're on the VR tangent because it's so fun and interesting. But one that I really want to like kind of try are the full motion body ones because there's I guess two sorts. There's like one where you're in a VR world, but they have like weird ARG like augmented reality things to make the real people like video game people in there. That's one that I wanted to try because a lot of people say that it can get pretty hectic because they get issues sometimes with because when you're in VR you kind of think anything's possible, it's limitless. They sometimes I've heard like have issues when a person tries to punch an employee because they're in VR and they're like, oh yeah, you're not real because all you see an empty space and then all of a sudden people are on the stage and you're like, oh, they're not there, and you're trying to like punch real people to like help that out. And then there's the full 360 where they have you on a track mat thingy where you are able to also use your feet to move. And that one is funny because there's this one clip that I've seen that there's a guy, he's playing a scary game and he sees a monster and he just like almost like books it off of the treadmill thing.
Completely.
But the way the treadmill's set up though is like it has you really tight in, so like it is gonna be impossible for you to run out. But he was making that thing spin. I was like, good lord, he is like going. Those are the two that I
tears up the whole
to
machine to get rid of a virtual monster.
Like
it was not good.
It was funny. Well, because I know you said you haven't been. I do wish that I brought in mine because I do have one for the phone, and that one's it's a pretty standard, nice way to get yourself into it. But like when you're in VR, it does feel like you're in it, depending on the resolution scale. But it does feel like you're in a different world.
Well, as a side note, so my profession is building fiber optic networks, and everyone's like, well, why can't we just do all wireless? And things like that. Like we don't have any idea the amount of horsepower something like that's going to need. Like and the fiber optic community we have to get these fiber optic lines, which are essentially limitless. There is a limit, but for all intents and purposes, as close as we can to the customer, even if you're wireless, because transmitting wireless is just the physics of it. It just can't handle the traffic that's probably and the response time. Like, I mean, split seconds. You can't have like a delay in VR. It's just, and gaming is another thing. People, gaming is driving a lot of the bandwidth and latency, because a couple second delay or something, you're dead if you're playing a war game. And speaking of, that's another training thing. Apparently you can, to think that you can be in a simulation environment of war games or flight, or speaking about your fear of flying, your pilots are training in VR scenarios, and they can give them scenarios that they might not be able to replicate in real life, that they otherwise, you want them prepared for, because it could happen, but there's really no way to. So it's but anyway, the bandwidth and the fiber and the internet and the computing power required for a lot of that stuff is something that my brain thinks about, because I'm like, wow, if I'm going to be employed for the next 20 years, I've got to be looking for the ability to deploy that, particularly in rural areas, so that we're not left behind from areas that have it, like the more urban centers where it's easier to do that stuff.
I will say technology, the greatest thing. I know some people may say that it's not, but me growing up on it, it's just so much can be done.
Look, there's so many things in life like that are either the best thing ever or they're poison. I mean, it's just that was something that got me thinking about, you saying learning and traveling, and do you need to go somewhere else to make your life? I think as long as you have the tools, inherent to, and success is a hard concept, but to realize, to give you hope and happiness and all the things that we're trying to do with our time here on Earth. That's what's most important.
Oh, sorry if I cut you off. But
no, you.
Yeah, it's because I know I sometimes go a little bit on the tangent of schooling sometimes, because I'm not gonna lie, I have a lot of disdain, because I had a really awesome teacher one year, and then in that same class I had like a really bad teacher. And
I think you talked to Jason about that, right?
Yes, that was because then I was going back to it with the technology side. It's like, teachers, they are needed, because everybody's a teacher in one extent of the way, but a lot of us don't realize that schools, why they were invented way back then, is because they didn't have what we have now to like have all that information. Like, school was the hub for information. Nowadays it's the internet. Anybody's a teacher.
Oh my gosh, and COVID just turned everything on its head. I mean, so
and then all those people who probably like invested into like IRL things that now can't use it or can't get the use that they were going to get out of it. And such as
IRL?
Things like textbooks, I guess. Because in Marco's episode, I was talking to him about how, you can get textbooks online. Like, you don't, in schools, you don't really, well, I don't know what the general thing is, but, you can generally purchase, like, everything off the internet.
Yeah.
Just a student can pull it up on their phone, which, I know I'm jumping back to the schooling thing, because I'm like, if you think about it like that...
this is fascinating to think. Works. I mean, it really is education, that we're talking about. And, there's a place for books, and there's a place for traditional learning, probably, and that, but at the same time, just don't toss it out because it's new. It's like, how can this be better and more, reach more people, and level, sort of the opportunity that people have is incredible. To think that, historically, and this is my just civic mind, property values were largely tied to the school district you were in. So you have parents that are taking out second mortgages on houses or having to buy homes in areas that they are struggling to live in, so they can just get their kid in a good school, right? Which is really fundamentally super important to parents. I mean, I universally, I think that's important. And so with virtual schooling, if you can actually, if any student can go to any school conceivably, as long as they're satisfying all the other sort of stuff that you need out of life, like sports and interactions and all that kind of stuff, how awesome is that to think that, I don't have to live in this zip code and pay
Yeah.
exorbitant taxes to this community to get the same education as if, I'm there, I can get living in a rural community that maybe doesn't have the schooling
Yeah.
resources, or vice versa. It might be that there's really no prerequisite anymore for where you are. And think about what that does to the real estate market. You can live anywhere.
Yeah.
You
That
can
kind of
go to where
changes
you
it.
want to live, just like work. It's
Yeah.
happening
Right
tremendously
now.
with that. And
Yeah.
this ties perfectly into the VR thing too. It's like when where you are doesn't matter
Yeah.
anymore, it just, it's just gonna fortunately it's a disruptor, and I like disruption,
Yeah.
because as long as it's used, it can be bad, but it can be a good
Yeah.
thing too. It's like some things are way too entrenched, and if you've ever bought a house, holy mackerel, you go into a room and you got all these people sitting around the table, like you're paying money to this person, you're paying money to this person, you're paying money to this person, you're paying money to this person.
Yeah.
You're like, why is that guy here?
Why is he
Well,
here?
that's
Yeah.
the person that does the blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, before you know it, like half your deposit is gone to like fees.
Yeah.
You're like, what is going on? Why don't, and it's very entrenched, and that's good. Maturity in an industry is good sometimes, but it's like,
Yeah.
wow, I'm not subject to living here. I don't have to play by
Yeah.
these rules. If I don't like them, I can go somewhere else. And I really, really like that. And that's good for a community like Cambridge, because,
Exactly.
it gives us some flexibility to attract a diverse population of people that aren't beholden to any particular area anymore.
Yeah, that's
We're
why
seeing
I
it.
like it. Yeah, that's why I like it here. Cause slowly, as I started learning. I want to do video. I'm doing it right now, and
Yeah.
I'm still where I'm at. I mean, and I can use some of my money to go travel to somewhere that I wanted
And
to.
I bet a lot of it is self-taught. Like, you don't even
Yeah.
you don't have to go to a New York film school anymore. You
Yeah.
can, but if you
Well,
wanted to, it would be
for
nice.
the prestige and the as we say clout.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's people you meet and all that. But
it's kind of mostly now if you want to go to a college for mostly like gaining connections. If I'm being honest, that's
yeah,
how I would see it.
right.
You're paying a fee to like be, I guess, equivalent of like a country club or a social club in some ways of the word, because it's a hub. You meet people,
Yeah,
hang with people. A lot
yeah.
of people like to say when there's everyone that I've ever heard talk about college would either say parties or the work or something that they learned. That's usually the two things that I mostly
So
hear
let me
about.
ask you this though too. It's sort of like, some very prominent people. It's like, I am fascinated with electric scooters, electric cars, everything.
Yeah.
Just as much because it's kind of a disruptor. It's doing things that maybe we needed to rethink.
Yeah, especially with
Elon Musk did not become famous by joining a country club. It's
Yeah.
like he doubled down on something he was passionate about. Wouldn't take no for an answer. There's only one like biography, and it's not an autobiography. It's sort of a loose biography. It's hard to understand a person like that. And he might be a bad example, but I'm sort of like, if you're good,
Yeah.
I'd say talent finds you. Like I really, laugh at me, but I was always fascinated by Justin Bieber. And,
Oh.
and it's cliche because it's like
It's
teeny
like,
bopper,
yeah.
whatever sort of thing. And he fell, after
Uh-huh.
his rise, pretty
Yeah.
bad, pretty devastatingly, and then reinvented himself. But his story was fascinating because it was him, his mom, and YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's how he was discovered. But it's like, that's the scenario where it's like he didn't join a country club. He didn't go to a specific school. I don't think. I might be wrong there.
Yeah, I don't know his background.
Largely just had a local music teacher, was incredibly talented, and just pursued his passion, either his or his mother's. I don't know whose it was, but ends up being that person. And of course, wasn't grounded enough to not make all those mistakes.
Yeah.
But I believe learned from a lot of the mistakes that were made, and sort of has mentally been reinvented. But so you as a talented production, person, I'd argue that if you get to a certain point, people will, you'll build connections and people will come to you.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
Yeah, that is the hope. I will say that it's it's happening somewhat, I guess I can say, because you know, popping in and out of various different areas. Like I will say, I got a random, I got a random text from somebody about the show, and I don't know who the heck it was. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
They said that the show was cool, and I was like, okay, I don't know
Yeah.
who you are, but
Yeah.
thanks for that thanks for the watching. And I guess if they are watching this one, yeah, I saw that message. Don't know who
That's
you
great.
are, but it was pretty cool. I like that. That's why I guess going. That's why I kind of, you know, and also why I have these themes on my phone, thinking about, you know, back to that whole point of being told that you have to leave. It's not really too much of a thing anymore. That whole Hollywood dream of people saying I want to be an actor and move to Hollywood, that's
Mm-hmm.
dead. Now it's a TikTok star. I'm gonna say it right here, right now. Everyone's
It's
out here just, you know, recording 15-second videos
yeah.
of them doing something random or stupid, you know,
Yeah.
whether it's them standing in front of traffic when they're not supposed to, or
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
licking ice cream, eating Tide Pods, you know. Everyone's getting their 15 minutes of fame out of something.
Right.
It's like, oh Lord, or
Hopefully they use it well. Yeah.
yeah, you know. But then there's also the good things out of it. Like I don't know if you heard of a person named Mr. Beast who was on YouTube. He's still doing things. Very charitable person. He's big in the sphere as the most charitable guy.
Yeah.
He's very good at what he does. I don't really know any other people that I can think of, but basically what I'm saying is that with every negative, is that there's always that positive that will later on be shown. Because when I was growing up, you know, YouTube was the big thing. Everyone wanted to be a wanted to be a YouTuber, except there was the whole stigma of it's not good. A lot of random people get on there, or it's not a guarantee, which it still isn't. But it's now that people, you know, understand that is, you know, the negatives. People are still, you know, doing it, but with a different mindset of like signing up to like people who will sponsor them or something with guaranteed funds.
Yeah.
You know, versus just hoping that YouTube doesn't flag their content and they don't get paid.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Again, back to industries mature, and where are you going to find the most opportunity? And it's usually in something new, sadly, because you get a lot of that sort of prestige you're talking about. What is prestige anyway? It kind of means like you're trying to like butter up to people that can sort of like make, I guess, your path easier. I guess
clout.
You know, clout. Yeah,
chasing,
right. Which what is clout? It's other than people that have managed to control something. You have to sort of bend to them a little bit, more or less, for lack of a better word, to be accepted into or to be promoted by people that have found themselves in the power structure. So why isn't, you know, what's that versus like the beauty of TikTok is it became just when YouTube and thought they were going to control the internet, up comes TikTok, and it's like, well, you know what? You won't let us. They will. And I love the democratization of society that those platforms have done. And it's just, even with the money supply right now, it's like the governments are like, oh my God, people are willing to exchange something that they've never even seen, you know, a virtual currency. Think about the geopolitical implications of that. It's like, what is a nation? What is a boundary? What is if a dollar doesn't matter, if it's just I'm just willing to give you this for that, that's really what. And they're like, wow, you know, I mean, a lot of control and a lot of the maturation and the ability to do something boils down to money. And it's like when you sort of disrupt that, wow, you want to talk about. So, you know, it's huge to just, you know, and so I'm always wary of like of the government wanting to regulate something, because that's a double-edged sword. Because it's, on one hand, it's like we're trying to prevent mistakes from happening, we're trying to prevent people from being hurt, but are you potentially hurting and frustrating so many more people by putting the rules around it? Because then you're going to have people that control it, and if they don't agree with what you're doing, whether it's innocuous or not, that could be a problem. You know, if all of a sudden we don't, you know, censorship. I mean, it's been the history of the world, you know. It's like, no, I get protecting intellectual property and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, but you know.
I will say, to butt off of the censorship thing, China doesn't regulate it. That's a fun fact, because I think they do a lot of lot of crazy stuff with copyrights because
Yeah.
they don't like respect it the way
The
we
irony
on
is
our
they
side.
censor, but yet they don't
Yeah,
protect
yeah,
intellectual content.
yeah. Like we and then it's like
We're
we
just the
censor.
opposite.
Yeah, that's
We
yeah, it's,
protect intellect, but we don't censor.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
which is interesting because then because I guess talking to you when you said like where's the boundary, I was thinking that too because it's like I'm talking to some guy who's in like you're I don't want to get I guess this will probably put into perspective what type of time period we are recording this, but with the current thing, sadly with Russia, we're getting like sure that this invasion is happening, but we're getting a lot of people from Russia saying this wasn't our hope, this was not what we were
Yeah.
thinking, this is yeah, so it makes you think like if we go back in time a little bit, it's like you kind of can see a little.
Well,
bit
you
of
wanna
the
you wanna
thing.
ask what is I mean, other than potentially a power move on behalf of the leader of
Yeah.
Russia, the self-appointed leader, that ultimately, from what I understand, it's all about energy.
Yeah.
And Europe wanting to get off of coal and sort of importing more natural gas, which goes through the Ukraine and
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. Well, if you can build a renewable power infrastructure where everyone generates their own power, look at what that does to disrupt the power structure of traditional.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say it. I'm worried I'm going to have the Russian.
Yeah. Yeah, just in case
So
if
that'll be
someone's watching.
the poison pill in my drink tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the idea, and I'm sure that they know that the smartest people in the room there, whether for good intention or not, know that disrupting energy, finance,
Yeah.
all of that, and is huge implications for that. And we're getting a little philosophical here,
I
but
know,
it's
yeah.
it's
But it's
we were
fun
talking
to
about
do. Yeah.
virtual reality,
Yeah,
so
it
let's
jumps.
go
Yeah,
there, right?
that's why I made the show.
Yeah.
Just talk. There's no question.
Yeah.
We go off on a tangent. We're gonna talk about
Yeah.
it.
I love talking about ideas.
Yeah, we're
so.
not gonna if we step on toes, we step on toes. That's what Jason said. I was like, okay, it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter type of deal. So, because at the end of the day, because thinking about going back to I guess that whole thing when you were saying disruption, I started thinking communication and entertainment that was all disrupted when things like TVs and then the smartphone came out. That all became different because now instead of hearing it on words or even way before in the newspaper, now you're hearing it and now we're seeing it,
Yeah.
and now we're at the point where it's practically being updated in real time,
Mhm.
and there's so many different sources that we now have to actually pick from all the
Mhm.
sources what is actually happening. It's kind of crazy, I guess, how far we've come in realizing that what I was being taught way back when someone said that you're still needing to go into a job interview may not be too much of the case anymore because of one thing, the thing of VR starting to become more consumer friendly.
Mhm.
Like I personally see I know Meta. I'm gonna say it. I'm not too fond of Facebook. I don't like them very much.
Right.
Mostly because of the circle that I'm in and hearing about
Right.
because I guess the biggest currency that anybody can really have is really information. 'Cause
Mhm.
information controls the flow of where everything kind of goes and such
Yeah.
as like that.
Yeah.
And Facebook being the biggest market in that industry or one of the biggest set actually. Google, I would have to recheck my facts, but Google being one of the biggest with their products. That's why nowadays, I know I'm jumping off on this tangent. Nowadays, you see all these entertainment industries making their own streaming services.
Mhm.
Because they're all, you know, create. I had it all in my head, now it's falling apart. But they all have, they all realize that hey,
Yeah.
we don't need to really share anymore. We can just kind of create our own thing, type of ordeal. I don't exactly know where that was going, but it was gonna go somewhere.
Well, a lot of it is just accumulating the data to be able to
Yeah.
sell things, and like Google is a data company. Like the information they get on you, Apple at the end of the day is a data company. Like who
Yeah.
buys their phones, what's their demographic, what are they interested in, all this kind of stuff. And it's Facebook's the same way. It's sort of like learning about people. Like there's a joke that says that the CIA used to like spend just ungodly sums trying to learn about a person.
Yeah.
Now all they got to do is like do a search on the internet and dig up their Facebook page. They can see who their family is, who their friends
Yeah.
are, where they went to college. I mean, all these things that you had to like hire expertise to even find out in the past. Are like, wow, and people are giving this up for free.
Yeah. Now we're in the world of
So,
information.
but like you said at first, it's a mixed blessing. You have to, with Facebook comes responsibility, and some people don't like that responsibility that they have to or any other platform, whatever the platform's going to be, whether it be VR or social media or
Which is why I'm kind of thinking a little bit, because I know jumping back on the education train is that there was this one guy, or not one guy, but multiple people making the argument of school has not changed since like the first time it's been conceptualized. It's the
the
desks.
one-room schoolhouse.
Yeah, it's just the desks, the teacher, and the board and the kids every year.
Mhm.
And now it actually got broken because now it's a screen, people's names on the list, and the teacher. And I personally think, like a lot of us, well, at least from what I hear from my teacher friends or even some other people who are teachers talk to me, they say, it's kind of difficult when some of their funding goes to their classrooms or anything that they have to buy. And it's like, all that really can be avoided if they just kind of went online. They did what everyone else is doing, Now everyone kind of, job interviews or stuff like that. It's all online.
So one of the things that I think about when you say that is in the internet business, we've been, as everyone can conceivably have internet or a smartphone or whatever, one of the challenges that people are worried about is, okay, how do we reach everyone? How do we get everyone to engage? Because the fear is it's like, and when the schools had to go virtual, there was a good chunk of people that did not have internet, or they didn't appear to have internet. And it's like, well, there's programs to provide it for free, believe it or not. It's accessible in this area, but you can't force someone to do it, right?
Yeah.
They probably have a smartphone. I would say most of the world
yeah,
does. Just
100%.
like everyone has a Gmail address, everyone's got a smartphone. But that's like education can be like right there in front of you, like the work. Like if you could even go to the library and learn if you wanted to. Like you have all these opportunities, but like, what do you do if someone doesn't take advantage of it? But yet they need to know this, and you want them to know this, and you want them to learn, and you want them to get these experiences, but they don't know any different, or for whatever their circumstances are, they still don't go after it. So schooling, my point in saying this, I think this was my point in saying it, is personal opinion. I think one of the things that the school system sees about actually taking a child and bringing them, and this is more like the Chris Wheaton, what's the Moving the Cambridge Forward initiative or something? He's been on WCP. This is more his wheelhouse, but what I've seen is that taking a person, child, whatever, and bringing them into a space gives some element of like, okay, we're going to change your environment if your environment isn't conducive to learning and exposure and whatever. And it's like, we're not trying to control you, but in so many ways, we're just trying to expose you. And if you're not here, we can't force you to be exposed. We can't force you to log in. We can't force you to like interact, because you have a natural curiosity and you just want to learn and you want to do these things. You got all these ideas. Well, not everyone has that, but yet you want them to at least have see that it's there. Because if they don't, if they're in a box, walled in, for lack of a better expression, the idea is bring them into a space where it's like, oh wow, all of this exists. I really see this, whereas if they're just, another thing COVID did, which people are blaming a lot of the rising crime on, is just,
I don't know about that, but
right. I'm not, again, this is not my opinion. It's one of the thoughts is just, sort of like Lord of the Flies, kids raising kids or something like that, or whatever. Is that a thing? I don't know. Maybe it's been that way forever. It probably has, but I think virtual versus bringing someone into an actual, and I am not an expert on this, versus bringing them into a space and actually trying to force the exposure. Is there a difference there? And which is, it's a philosophical question, and it's actually largely, you could probably do some research and pull some data and say, well, the standard deviation of education value for someone going into a physical classroom and with a teacher versus this is X. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess because I know this is gonna jump to me. I'm sorry if I cut you off.
No, no, no,
But,
no. I don't want to talk. I want to learn about you.
Yeah, so going back to it a little bit, because I'm like, really it's household when you think really back to it, because they say that because you were saying your little echo chamber. That's a word that I like to use.
Yeah.
Is that you're always being told like you're only in that space. Your parents are gonna say one thing, your friends say one thing, and then everyone else will say one thing. And I guess that's where you come from with the school aspects, that those people are gonna challenge what you were already being told by your echo chamber.
Yeah.
That's what you're probably trying to get at, which I can get behind to an extent, because in some cases some people I guess learn differently than others. Like I like online, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
When I'm interested, of course, because like when I think about the things I think about, like if I'm like, oh, I wanted to start this show, how am I gonna have it like produced? I knew for a fact that I didn't want it to look like our other productions. They are good, but I wanted them to have a little bit more pizzazz. That they didn't look like that they were shot. I guess like I like to call it the Eastern Shore style, where it's kind of weird. It seems like it's bare minimum in some cases.
All right.
But where was I going with that?
We were talking about the difference between
Yes.
being stuck in your own echo chamber versus like maybe forced into a different scenario.
Yeah, when I was in that echo chamber, because like we were talking about earlier, is that my dad was in the military, so all of our beliefs were always challenged every time he came back, because it was never him just saying you're going to be successful. It was him saying, are you going to be successful? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? It wasn't you're going to do this type deal. Like some of these kids kind of go through a little bit, because I will say blessed to have the parents that I had to teach me the things that I was taught, and to be in this position right now. Because if I'm being honest, when I was in high school, I mean, I was at the station, but I didn't expect myself to make a show or continue doing the things or meet the people that I've met, if I'm being honest. But I've always said, like, to challenge something, to like do something new, like the scooter thing. That was a challenge. I didn't, if I'm being honest, I didn't know if I wanted to do that. But I was like, it's a challenge. It was something I kind of want to dig into. So there was that. So that's the one hand of it, which I can see why. Because then if those kids who are in that certain area, who are always told, you're going to do this, you're going to be affiliated with this, and they feel like they're trapped, I can see where that kind of comes in going.
Apparently, one of the best things you can do for a child, and again, they don't always get it from their echo chamber, as you call it, is give them the confidence that they can, whatever that looks like. Because personally, and I don't know about your experiences, but even though I had a very good growing up experience, was encouraged to do a lot, never felt like I couldn't do anything, I do think a lot of what a day-to-day is for a person is doubt. And like, asking yourselves lots of questions. Can I do this? Can I, and sometimes you talk yourself in and out of stuff constantly, but it's like inherently, if you've ever had some successes, maybe you build on that. Maybe that's what gives you the confidence, even though someone can tell you all day long, because you don't want to just, again, the people make fun of like the attendance awards. You get an award for just showing up. It's like that they make fun of that. But does that, give someone, like, at least bring them up a notch to give them a little bit of confidence to pursue whatever it is they want to pursue, versus the opposite of that is like, you're never going to amount to anything, or I don't know. I mean, I don't really know.
Well, that's why we like to talk about it, like have them guests. But
because there's plenty of examples of successful people that were told they couldn't do anything their whole life.
Yeah, because I know that it can even be vice versa. If there's like, a kid out there who has like really bad GTA, like that doesn't mean like that they can't learn or are bad. It just probably means that they're not passionate. I kind of like, a lot of people like to say, you have to have a GPA to get to college, which is, I guess the American dream, the college, the family, the house, the kids. But slowly that's changing with the climate of the world. Now it's like, back in the day, a lot of people were like, I'm gonna live out my van, and that was probably the cheapest thing you can do. Now it's probably the most expensive thing you can do nowadays, because it's like I guess like they like to say, an Instagram filter. Like you live in a van, that is like probably the influence of lifestyle because you're going out, you're seeing beautiful sunsets and all this other stuff in the world
Yeah.
of America versus probably the average person like me who's sitting at home at
Yeah.
the same looking at the same sunset for every single day
Yeah.
or checking
I
something
think
out.
of it
But
though, like I remember one time, the first time I went to California, I was sitting on the beach with a friend, and I was like, think about the tree that's growing along the water's edge, and this is really philosophical, but it's like it can't move, it's not going anywhere. This is its spot. Its perspective will forever be where its roots are planted, unless someone moves it, which is highly unlikely.
Yeah.
So for however long that tree lives, it's got one view, and it's a beautiful view, and hopefully it appreciates it of the water.
Yeah.
Versus like say a bird that lands in the tree, they can go for all intents and purposes, fly around, see all these different things and whatever, and it's like whose perspective is worse? The tree that's like just kind of there and like has to make the best of it and be creative in their own spot, or the bird that has the world at its disposal and can go anywhere, oversimplifying this,
Yeah.
and can see lots of new different things or whatever. Are they just as bored? And the fact that the tree has to be creative in its own space, like it's arguable that both have the opportunity for creativity and success. And it's like, I've read where some in doing sitcoms, like traditionally, a lot of times the artists would challenge themselves. They would put parameters around what they were doing. Like the worst thing you could do sometimes is say, whatever you got, just make it laugh, make them funny. Well, they would do different scenarios, and what am I saying? So anyway, when you do comedy, that it's just like it's made up the whole time. What?
Stand up?
No.
Not stand up. Improv?
Improv.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just drawing a blank. Improv
Yes.
is what I meant. So there's that, and what part of the reason you do that is you never know what's going to come up next, so you can't sort of like get too, in your own lane or have too many opportunities. You get constrained as much as you have as everything you want to do. There's constraints based on the situation that force creativity out of you, and you might think of things that you otherwise wouldn't. So you build like a little perimeter. You don't have to, but you do. And I've also always been fascinated by that. I'm like, by giving yourself less choice, you can be more creative and do something great, which is a fascinating concept. But hopefully the tree versus the bird analogy, which is not too bizarre, but I mean, I thought about it because I was always a guy that loved home. I loved Cambridge. I didn't really want to go to college. I knew I had to, and I wanted all those things, but I was just, again, back to what the first thing I said, going down to the end of the street and like playing marsh grass. I was happy as could be, and that was home, and I was comfortable there.
It's like
but
getting pressured. I know. I'm trying to also think about what you're thinking, but being pressured, I guess, because you said, like, now I've learned more about you. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. But now I've also learned a little bit that I'm like, it sounds like, it really just sounds like nowadays it's just kind of pressure. It's usually what the parent wants best for their kid because, the parent usually goes through like a ton of mistakes and wishes that the kid made no mistakes, which, is humanly impossible. The kid's going to make mistakes
Right.
and, grow from those mistakes. But it depends, I guess, what the parents, in my opinion, should really think about is if the kid is going to be, I guess, a negative to society or a positive to society. That's kind of what I base it off of because, I think about this every day. I'm like, I'm at the station. That's pretty good and all, but who's to say that I could probably be one of the kids out there just causing havoc, wreaking havoc, not really doing anything, just doing what I want to do. It was just, what my parents told me, community helped me kind of realize, and now I'm, doing this, finding out new things. Reason why I said that is just because it sounds like being pressured, and not everyone, I guess, is being pressured.
Well, and most of my pressure is self-inflicted. I will tell you.
Well, not to say not to say the parents' pressure is bad, but it's a good pressure because they're keeping you from being a troublemaker.
Yeah. Well, and true. So there's a preacher out in California that worked in some of the worst neighborhoods of LA, and he created something called Homeboy Industries. And the way that worked was saying like people make mistakes or whatever, and he would, it's a book, and he just keeps the door open constantly for gang members that, you know, they've murdered people, they've got friends that are murdered, there's rivalries, there's sort of like what society would deem as like worst case scenario for how your kid ends up. And he would essentially offer them a job. You know, some of these guys had never been on a plane before, you know, they just different things. But I guess at the end of the day, the door was always open if they were willing to walk through it. And it took them a while. But my point in bringing this up is just because someone is in a certain situation at a certain time, you don't ever really want to lose hope. You know, there's always a second chance, and I firmly believe that. And, you know, if you had told me, you know what, I was a terrible kid according to society, and I did everything wrong, and I didn't go to school, and I cussed out my teachers, and I was, you know, there's graffiti right across the street here that someone did that I found out about that I've covered up, you know, but you know, that's what I did, and it's like, but now I'm an amazing artist, and I put my talents towards good. It's like there's always
like a redemption arc, I guess.
Yeah, I really, you know, I hope that most people, no matter what, they can eat. Sometimes, like you said, you gotta sometimes really you can make really bad mistakes. Now, if you're criminally insane, or if you are just a really bad person at your core, maybe like not.
You have malice intent.
Yeah, I don't want to believe, but I think realistically, people like that do exist. But at the same time, if you're just somebody that's just kind of trying to figure yourself out and went down some wrong paths and learned from it, I would hope to think most people fall into that category.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like cause I like to play a lot of racing games. It's like, you know, you can have a bad start at the beginning of the race, but you may end up in first place somehow by the end of it. You know, so it's, you know, even though like during the race you may have dirty players who'll push you off the track or do like spin you out or just completely or just misguide you in the wrong direction, you will end up finding yourself back on the path and, you know, may not finish first, but you'll possibly get podium, top 3, somewhere around there. Or hopefully you stay in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of, I guess, the mindset that I hope, you know, to inspire with this show, that people, you know, like when I have you guys on, that it's not just me looking at a list expecting, you know, pre-generated answers. You know, you're just kind of you're talking.
Yeah. So I want to make sure too. Is there anything your list looks longer than we kind of got?
Oh no, that's just.
Is there anything you need to? Because I want to make sure that I'm honoring what you want to talk about.
This is just literally if the conversation ever went dry. That's all this is for, really. Because you know, yes, I do have a list. My secrets are up, but you know, you do need that a little bit. So it's its own little thing. But looking at the time, we do have like 5. Because I try to keep these an hour. We do have like 5. We have 5 more minutes. So
you can cut out the boring parts.
There's no boring parts. I mean, I'll obviously, you know, car up all the really good parts and put them in the clip section.
Yeah.
You know, the shorter video segments that I don't know, that I try to send out to people. I haven't been sending those out because I do have shorter. Because I do clip these to shorter bits just in case people can't watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I clip them up to shorter bits so that people can check out, you know, maybe what I thought was some that was worth noting or something like that. But yeah, I'm gonna say I enjoyed this conversation. I don't know if I probably can wrap up now, but I really enjoyed this conversation.
Well,
it was awesome having you on. I was happy that you did come on and that we could get a pretty alright conversation out of this.
Pretty alright. I'll take it.
Yeah. So I guess that'll end it. Do you have any final words that you would like to say?
I don't think so. Cool. No, wish you luck with this, and I'm excited about your platform and everything you're doing. So
yeah, I'm hoping to put, because I will be posting more, and I will hopefully have you back on as a guest. I'm trying to see if I can get the same people on every now and again. Obviously not like next month, but it'll be sometime. So just to update a little bit. So yeah, cool. That's really about it then, I guess. I'll say thanks for watching Flowdoe episode 3 with Brian Rochon, and have a nice rest of your days.
Yeah. Thank you.